Hey guys, it's Bab and welcome to episode 2 of Drawing Hands. In this episode we're going to be looking at the movement of the hand, how the fingers move, how the thumb moves, any other little bits that will move and change the shape of the hand, and we're going to be looking at the overall shape. So we're going to be looking at it in 3D and how it moves and changes shape as it moves around, and we're going to be picking out some shapes that make it easier to draw at different angles. Now this is just me doing some more stuff that I suggested last time, like drawing a load of just simple hands to figure out the proportions. So here's some that I went and did after finishing the first tutorial. And if you haven't watched the first tutorial, then here's a link. So let's get started with this. Okay, so one thing that I want to mention quickly that I should have mentioned in the last tutorial, I'm just going to do a quick sketch of it. A common mistake that people make when they're drawing hands, let me just make my brush a bit bigger. Sometimes they'll draw one hand and they'll draw another hand, but the thumb will be on the same side and it won't make sense. So if you hold your hand, it's a really easy thing to sort out because you can just look down at your own hands. But if you're unsure, like even a little bit, it is best to look at your own hands, or look at yourself in the mirror regardless of what part of the body you're trying to draw. Just so you can check how far you can move things, where your thumb goes and where it points when you move your hand. So some people will do this, and then the next hand that they draw on the other arm, facing the same way, like this. Which of course, if you look down at your own hands and they're both palms down, it doesn't make any sense. But obviously if the hand flips over and this is the inside of the hand, then it'd make sense. So if the palms are down, the thumbs face inwards towards each other. And if the palms are up, and we can see the padding of the hand, and if the palms are up, thumbs face away from each other. That's just a quick thing that I wanted to mention, but yeah, the hands are basically mirrored. So that's just something to keep in mind, especially when you're drawing a full figure with the arms attached, and they need to obviously make sense. You need to be able to tell which hand is which and that the thumb is in the right position. Okay, so in this part we're going to go over hands in 3D and how certain parts of the hand can move. So how the fingers and thumb moves, how the shape can change as fingers and thumb are moving. And we are going to be doing a little bit of drawing at the end of this. And again, you can find a link in the description to the pack of hand references that I'm providing with this, so that you can get all these pictures and more to have a look at. There's about 65 in the pack and they should be helpful. There's a load of easy ones for you to look at and reference from. So the first thing we want to look at is the side view of the hand. Just see it first in this other direction that we haven't looked at it from, because from now we've just looked at it straight from above as like a flat view of the hand. So if we have a look at this shape, we can start to point out these areas that we were looking at before. Okay, so we've got the bottom of the hand, we've got this bit of the wrist here, got where it joins to the arm, we've got this bit of a tendon here, which I'll be talking about later. This bendy bit of the wrist, I'm going to fill this in as well because they've got a bit more movement in them. Got this block of the hand here up to these knuckles. And you can see here how by the knuckles it moves inwards here towards where the pad is, the pad of the hand. And now we start to see these shapes in 3D. So we've got this triangle here that we get from the thumb becomes a curved triangle like this. So you start to see how the shapes wrap around in 3D. And the fingers and the way how the knuckles or the bends in the finger curve around. See where the pads of the fingers are. And how they curve. Start to see the thickness of the hand, how large it is when you're viewing it from the side. You can still see how this thumb lines up with where the knuckles are here and where the first bend of the finger is here. We're going to bring that up to the first knuckle of the thumb. That triangle should be bigger. There we go. And you can see that these are, like I said, there's the base of the hand here up to about the knuckles and the length of the fingers. And from this angle you can sort of see where the knuckles are here and where it joins up on the palm of the hand, where it's a little bit higher up. The palm's a little bit higher up because we don't have the separation in between the fingers as much. That's where the webs are between your fingers. So it's just a little bit bigger, which is why you get this slanted shape here, going between them and wrapping around the hand. Now the next one, which looks quite similar, but this is where we start thinking about how the thumb can move. Now we're starting to see a little bit of how the hand moves. I'm only going to block out one finger, come down to the thumb. We've got this little bit of skin here connecting the triangle. Now you can see, compared to this other one, because they're pretty much taken at the same angle, I've just moved my thumb down a bit. And if you look at your own hand and hold it at this angle and then move your thumb down, you can see how pretty much this area, it creates a bit of a V, and there's quite a bit of movement there to allow your thumb to move around and grab things. And you start to see that there's quite a bit of movement here, and the bone structure around this area starts to become a bit more apparent. Just line these up again. And also, if you turn your hand over, you can move your thumb inwards and squash your hand together. And this is weird looking. You would probably never draw this, but just because it looks a bit weird, and it's not necessary to really draw a hand like this unless you're practicing. It just shows you how much the hand can move around. I'm just gonna twist this round so you can see it a bit easier. You can see this is a really weird shape, but you can see how the thumb, when it'd normally be like out here, it can bend over into the hand to make the hand smaller. So imagine if you're putting a bangle onto your hand and you need to squish your fingers in to get it over and onto your wrist. That's the sort of thing you have to do with your hand. Mark out the shape, okay. Now we're on the palm, so we've got this shape for the pads of the hand. And you can see this is also happening a little bit with the little finger, which people don't tend to think about as much. I never hear anyone talk about how the little finger sort of, it has a little bit of this movement. Like it can squash in a little bit, but it can't really move around as much as the thumb. Whereas the three middle fingers, they don't really move. They pretty much stay solid where they are, but there's more movement towards the edges of the hands. So if you grab the knuckle of your little finger and wiggle it about a bit, you can feel movement there. There's like movement. It can move backwards and forwards, and it can allow your hand to move and squidge together just a little bit, which is again something that I'm going to mention later, which is why I've got pictures of fists and stuff. And we've got the pads, and you start to see how these can sort of bend inwards, can squidge inwards. Okay, so the thumb is stretchy. Thumb is a little bit stretchy and allows for a bit of movement, and also a little bit on the little finger. So let's have a look what happens when you make a fist. Right, if you look at your hand like straight down it, you can see that it's pretty much flat across, like across the knuckles, it's pretty much a flat shape. But when we make a fist, we get this same shape as when you're drawing, plotting out where the fingers are. So we've got the fingers in this sort of shape where I said we've got precipice here, we've got it a little bit lower here, and we've got this lowest drop off here where the little finger is. Like that sort of shape. And the same shape appears in your knuckles when you make a fist. So we've got this point here, we've got this higher point here, and this lowest point where it drops off here. So again, it's the same sort of shape when you're looking at the knuckles. And this is because, like I've mentioned, you've got this little bit of give in your little finger. And obviously because of the give in your thumb, you can wrap it around the rest of the fingers and hold them in place. So let's draw this out. So we've got the main block of the hand behind here, like this. Let's just map that out. And even if it's behind all of this shape, you should still be thinking about where it is. And as well, you can start to see this tendon here tensing a bit. Got this wrist. The movement there because I've got my hand pulled round. Now let's draw the thumb in. Now, like I said, the block of the hand's up here, so we're going to have a big curve coming round behind. That is this V shape stretching out so that the thumb can come down here and it's going to curve around like this. So the V shape is around behind here. And then we've got the knuckles. So like even in the shape of the knuckles, you've got this shape making itself apparent. Like the most defined one is the middle one, because that's at the top of the shape, so everything else is pulling down from it. So this is where the knuckles really most exposed, because the skin's all being pulled away from this one knuckle. So everything's pulling down that way and a little bit down this way. And then we've got this one, and again, don't forget that it follows this sort of curve. And there's a little bit of definition on that one, like you can see the shape of the knuckle, you can see the bone. And when it gets to the little finger, it just sort of drops off like this. Like really soft, really soft. We've got this curve of these knuckles. Now these are in a bit more of a straight shape because all the knuckles line up. They're all different. All the first pieces of the fingers here, all these bones are slightly different lengths, but because of how the hand pulls together, how it all pulls together like this, they all sort of even out and line up like this into one shape. We'll just add in this other knuckle. This one gets a little bit, this finger gets a little bit more pushed up because it's sat against the thumb, so it gets pushed up just a little bit, so this one's higher. Otherwise you would get this sort of shape. And then we just got the way the fingers curve round and here, and again this is a little bit straighter because of how they line up and how the fingers curve inwards, which we're going to mention in the next little bit. Oh, and we've just got a quick side view of if you're making a fist. So we've got the shape of the knuckles. You can see how this bit sort of the pads of the hand bulk up. I'll mark out the shape quickly, and then you can see this triangle-y shape here that's stretching to allow the thumb to move over here to hold the fingers in place. And while we've got a good view of it, you can also see the way that the fingers curl around and all fit together in this neat little shape, and you can see how we've got one length and then one that's a little bit shorter and then one that's shorter again, and you can see how they all sort of curve around like this and slot into each other in this sort of Fibonacci spiral. And you've got this chunk here, and then you'd have the arm as one chunk as well. Do those in green so they stand out more. I don't know how to spell Fibonacci, but you know what I mean, the golden ratio. Okay, so we've had a look at the thumb and the little finger and how they move and how that can affect the shape of the hand. Now the next thing I want to mention is how the fingers move. So we're going to take a look, and I've got a few more of fists. Okay, so block out the shape again, because even though we're looking at the fingers, the more you block out the entire shape, the more you're going to get used to it and be able to remember it. So, you know, every chance you've got, you want to just do it, because the more you do it, the quicker you'll get at it and the better you'll get at it. The easier it'll be to remember, and the easier it'll be to redraw things from memory. Okay, so we've got that here. These little pads. You can see how it's quite subtle if you don't notice it. What a lot of people will do is they'll draw a fist and all the fingers will come together and they'll all just be straight down like this, and they'll probably draw one of those weird thumbs that I mentioned the last time. Like this. But hands don't go like that. They sort of have this curve inwards like this. Even you can see even on this finger there is a curve inwards. So all the fingers sort of curve inwards and come together so they can fit into this squidgy part of the hand. So instead you sort of get a shape like this, where the fingers curve inwards like that. Fingers curve inwards. Okay. So let's pick blue. And you know, you can say this for the thumb as well, because it does apply to the thumb as well. It curves over and inwards. So you can see they all point inwards and then curve over. Especially at the edge of the little finger, and you can see if you curl your own hand up into a fist, you can see how the tip of the finger doesn't go over the edge of the hand. It stays within this nice padded area here. It all sort of slopes inward like this. Just draw in that bit there. There we go. And that's a really weak fist, but you can also see in this tighter fist that I'm making, and you can see the tendon here as well, because I'm putting a bit more strength and tensing it a little bit more. Just going to point out that these angles get a little bit more intense, because they're sort of because you're really putting a lot of effort into squashing your hand together. So there's a lot of effort coming in squashing. Tensing squashes the hand more, and then that in turn makes these angles just a little bit steeper. When you tense this much, these second bends in the finger don't really line up as well. They sort of go in this kind of direction because of the shape. Because of the shape of the padding in the hand, they sort of go around that. And then because there's not as much here around the little finger and the little finger's smaller, it just goes back up. Okay, so now we know that the thumb can move around like this and the little finger can as well. And we know that the fingers curve inwards towards the centre. So that's when we've got our fingers pulled inwards, but what if we pull the fingers outwards like this and make them into a claw, or if it's just your hand sat still on something? Well, you can see here, instead of having my hands splayed out, it's in more of a relaxed pose. Like in the first video, the hands were just flat out so that you could see the proportions and basic shapes without needing to worry about thinking about it in 3D. Now there's a bit more 3D in this because you can see the fingers are slightly raised up, and you can also see that because of that they are curved in, because I'm not making an effort to make the hand flat, it's just relaxed. Okay, so we're going to draw the shape out. And you're very used to the shape by now, so you should be able to knock it out pretty quick. And I know I'm tracing, but we're going to draw some hands at the end of this one, guys. And then in the next one, we'll draw lots of hands. The next one is going to be all about putting all this together and drawing some hands from what we've learned and what we've picked up, so we can pick out any mistakes that we've been making in the way we've been drawing hands. Okay, so we've got our knuckles. We're going to draw the thumb in and line up these. We got the curve of the thumb. You can start to see the curve of these shapes. And there's not really any stretching. There's no stretching here because the thumb's just relaxed. But I'm still going to draw that shape in, just to point out where it is to you. And now you can start to see how these fingers curve in, and it's even on the first finger. You wouldn't think that it's on the first finger, but it does curve around slightly. Just slightly, not as obvious as the little finger, because obviously there's a little bit of giving the little finger in terms of how it can move about. But there is definitely a little bit in the first finger, and it is sort of to do with the shape and how it tapers. Of course, like the finger's larger around the knuckles and it gets thinner towards the ends, but you can see a little bit of a curve that's apparent here. I'm just going to mark that in with curves just to start defining things as a 3D shape instead of blocking them off like this. You want to be able to curve over and around the shape, and this is going to be really useful for when we start messing about with like foreshortening on these next shapes with sort of clawed hands. And this one curves underneath, and you can start to see how more extreme this curve gets towards this middle point. How they all sort of curve towards the middle point as they get further away from it. So the curve is pretty much going to, I'd say, like somewhere around this point. Like around where the middle finger is. Or somewhere around here. They all like curve inwards. So that when you see fingers sort of arched, they'll always be sort of curving inwards slightly. And you can see this if you just hold your hand like floating in the air. You know how if you lift your hand up and tilt it back, your fingers curve in just because of your tendons and how they work. You can see at really any angle, if you just hold your hand limp, the way that the fingers do slightly curve inwards. Okay, so we've done tense and relaxed hands in different positions, but we've done a relaxed open hand, and now we're going to do more of a tensed open hand just to show you this curve of the fingers. Okay, so again we're looking at the palm of the hands. We're gonna block the shape out, and you can see here how we've obviously got this shape, this V shape in the thumb that's allowing it to stretch out a little bit out to here, but you can also sort of see it in the little finger here. The gap between the bones and everything for the fingers, it's just stretched out a little bit to allow this finger to come round and out a bit. And this curving inward shape, this is like obviously something that just allows us to grab things easier, because if all the fingers were just straight out flat, everything could just sort of slip out of your hand. So when everything curves inwards, it's a lot easier to grab something. Like imagine if you're holding a ball, which is something we're going to go into grabbing stuff in the next episode, and how hands sort of wrap around things, which is why I'm teaching you about this stuff first. It'd be very difficult to pick up something if your hand didn't wrap around it, or it wouldn't be able to wrap around it, especially if it's something smaller than your hand. Look at the shape of the thumb really quick, and you can see the thumb is also sort of coming out and wrapping around like this, so it's not just doing that shape really, it's coming up and over like this to show that it's 3D. And now the first thing that I'm noticing when I'm looking at the curve of the fingers in this, when that's something that I'm really looking for, I notice this little finger. We're looking at the hand from the side, so we can see the pads of the hand like this. But this little finger, we don't see a curve to it because we're looking straight at it. We know that it's curved because of how it's foreshortening, like this. But because of the way it's curved around, even though we're looking from the side, it looks like we're looking straight at it. And then as we go around the fingers, you can see how it looks as though they turn more to the side, and we can see them a bit more from a side view, but you can see how these fingers curve over like this. And we can see the segments of the fingers overlapping with the segments below them. So we start to see this sort of curve where this segment is on top of this segment, like this. So we start to see these curves. And they're all sort of curving around towards the centre like this. Okay, and one more at a little bit of a different view. Get the red again. Shape. Triangle for the thumb. Black out these pads here. You can see a little bit how the inside of the hand stretches as well, especially around the little finger. Got these stretchy shapes here between the bones, and again we can see how this top part of the finger overlaps these other pieces, and we're drawing in curves to define the 3D shape rather than just straight lines. So this one's near enough jutting out to the side and wrapping around. Then this one's a little bit less harsh. And then this one, just a bit softer again. And then this one, which just curves in slightly, along with the actual shape of the curve in the finger. And we've got just this little bit of a curve with the thumb, and we can see that it's curving inwards because we've got this shape that's made between them here. That tells us where it's curving. Okay, there we go. Okay, so let's do some drawing. Now, I'm keeping in mind all the things that I've just gone over, and we're going to try and draw some stuff that demonstrates it. Okay, so I'm keeping in mind curving around the thumb and the fingers to define that it's a 3D shape and show the curve around the shape of it. Keep it in mind. Even if I'm not drawing out every little guideline that I was doing previously over the references. I'm still keeping them in mind and keeping in mind the shapes that I've picked out, even if I'm not drawing them. I'm still thinking about them and imagining where they go on the sketch, just to make sure that I'm placing everything correctly. And these don't start off too great, because the first few you do aren't going to be great. Like, even if you've drawn loads before, they're not going to be great, because you've got like a warm-up period. But as I go along, they're going to get better and better, because I'm learning from the last ones that I did. And you can see I'm accounting for the way the little finger sort of curves around, and we're blocking out that shape as one big curve. But in the ones where you can see the other knuckles, you can see I'm accounting for the way that it curves around, and you won't be able to see the little finger or the knuckle of the little finger. And I'm drawing some fists as well, just to get the curve of the fingers and the way that they point inwards. And I'm going to try it again on this one. My sketches are a little bit messy, but you know, as you do more, they will clean up. And again, it's just over time you'll learn how to do it. And you can see with the fingers, the way they're curving inwards, I've made sure that that little one has got like a little bit of a gap between the edge, because it's curving inwards, and there's a little bit of a gap between the edge of the hand. And I've got this curve again, so that you can see the inside of the hand from between the thumb and the fingers. And I'm making sure to still block in the pads of the hand, and taking into account how they squidge slightly and change shape just a little bit, depending on how the hand is moving. And try a little claw looking one. I think the fingers are a bit small on that one, but you know, I'll probably go and clean these up later. These are just quick little sketches. And I am looking at my own hand while I'm drawing these, just to come up with poses a little bit quicker, because I don't want to copy straight from the pictures that I've taken, and I don't want to copy straight from my hand really. What I'm doing is just making a pose with my hand and then trying to remember it and drawing it from what I've learned. Because I'm not trying to do life drawing in this, I'm trying to learn and remember and solidify it in my mind. But if you want to do life drawing, that is also a good way to go. It's just that this is a useful technique for learning and remembering, so looking at it and then drawing it and then looking at it again to check that it's right. Hey guys, thanks for watching. I'll put download links to the hand reference pack in the description, along with links to where I post stuff and my commission information. In the next part, we're going to be looking at how hands grab things and wrap around things and hold different items, so subscribe to get notified as soon as that comes out. If you have any suggestions for tutorials you'd like to see, then leave me a comment, and if this helped, leave a like. Thanks for watching, bye bye!